Welcome, folks. I am Jaby Koay, joined by ACHARA KIRK.
What's up?
We're looking at Theoretical Physicist Breaks Down the Marvel Multiverse, featuring Michio Kaku.
Okay.
This is from Wired's YouTube channel. If you want to subscribe to their channel, go down to the description and click on the link below, and you can give the original video an upvote and give Wired a subscription. Give this video an upvote if you could be so kind. It lets YouTube know that you enjoy what you're seeing. And also subscribe, hit that bell icon, all notifications. I am a big fan of astrophysics, like amateur, hardcore amateur. I don't know jack diddly squat about any of that stuff, but I love hearing about it. I like watching Michio Kaku videos, Neil deGrasse Tyson, and all the pop sci-fi stuff, or
Right.
Science, I should say, pop science.
Sci-fi. Well, yeah, because sci-fi comes from science, doesn't it?
Right, and so I'm talking about actual science and stuff like that. You know, anytime I can, find a YouTube video talking about space or astrophysics, I love to watch that stuff. You know, KIRK or whatever it's called. I enjoy the crap out of it. And so Michio Kaku talking about, Marvel Multiverse and all that, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gobbling that right up.
All right, let's do it.
All right, here we go.
Not just looking for a time criminal, we're looking for a Loki, a variation of this guy.
In the Disney Plus series Loki, the god of mischief is arrested for time crimes.
Guilty of a crime against the sacred timeline. Absolutely not, you have the wrong person.
This confirms there's a multiverse in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, an idea
Duh.
that's been teased in previous movies. The next Doctor Strange movie is even called the Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah,
but
dead
are there
giveaway.
real scientific theories behind this fictional multiverse?
Oh, is that the...
I'm Professor Michio Kaku, Professor of Theoretical Physics. Let's break down the Marvel Multiverse.
Okay. I was just wondering if that was like the blue redshift that they were showing there.
In the first episode,
Wait, when?
They had like this graphic with the...
Oh, right here?
Yeah,
At 29 seconds?
yeah.
but are there real scientific
I don't know.
I just remember you talking about that when we watched Tenet, and I was like, oh, I don't know anything.
I think it's just fun colors. It might be blue redshift, but I don't think that's what they were displaying there.
Yes, I'm a very, very average physics student.
In the first episode of the series, Loki goes to time jail and is subjected to this adorable cartoon orientation video.
Adorable.
Timelines battled each other for supremacy. But then the all-knowing timekeepers emerged, bringing peace by reorganizing the multiverse into a sacred timeline.
When you watch this clip, you say to yourself, oh, come on. I mean, this is just a cartoon, it's science fiction. But believe it or not, elements of that are actually encoded in the laws of physics.
What?
We do believe that at the beginning of time there was chaos. All these world lines colliding, quantum fluctuations taking place everywhere. And out of that came our classical world, our Newtonian world. Isaac Newton said that time is like an arrow. It fires in one direction, never deviates. Einstein comes along and says, no, the timeline is not an arrow, it's a river. A river that can speed up and slow down. The quantum theory says the river of time can fork into many rivers to create parallel realities.
There we go.
We branch off continually every time we make a motion, every time we move. There could be a universe where you have a twin brother or a twin sister. Another universe where you could be a billionaire. Another universe where you could be a mass murderer. And believe it or not, you can calculate that number using quantum mechanics.
What?
All we physicists can do is calculate the probabilities that these universes can exist. But our universe, the so-called sacred timeline, is the common sense universe, the universe of Newton. It is the dominant timeline, which is singled out in Marvel Comics.
Wait,
According to
what if this common sense timeline that he's talking about, what if we're in a branch timeline and actually this is the nonsense timeline and actually there's a common sense timeline somewhere else?
Well, you wouldn't know.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I think he's talking from an egotistical standpoint, and I don't mean egotistical in a negative way. I mean just from our own perspective.
Well, right. According to our understanding, we're basically the center of the universe.
Right.
Like that always has been often in science, you
Right.
know, like even with the Earth being the center of the solar system
No, I mean,
before the sun.
You're absolutely right in that we could be experiencing a branch timeline and just not know it, but like we wouldn't know it.
Yeah, we wouldn't know it.
Yeah.
That's why I'm questioning him. I'm
No.
like, how do you know that this is the logical timeline?
He's just saying for the sake of argument that this is the common sense timeline. Like
Okay.
we are living in that timeline. But
I think I just want to make it more complicated.
Okay, I think that's what you're succeeding very hard.
the Marvel Comics timeline, which is singled out in Marvel Comics. According to Marvel Comics, a few of these variants that deviate from our timeline can really mess things up and create another Big Bang of some sort where these multiverses collide.
Right. But does the multiverse really look like a bunch of squiggly lines?
There are two ways of visualizing the multiverse. One way is to look at this long timeline where we have the past, the present, and the future, and like a tree, branches keep coming off. There's another way of looking at it. Einstein says that our universe is a bubble expanding that peels off a baby bubble, or perhaps two bubbles collide, giving you a bigger bubble, and we think that is the Big Bang.
That theory right there is how a lot of stuff in the universe is explained. Even the formation of Earth and the Moon is basically that.
We're just bubbles.
Yeah, when you had I don't know what you call it, the primordial,
Goo.
the very early Earth, in its formation, it was smashed into by another planet-sized rock. It's just that collision, right? And so the remains of that collision became the Moon. It coalesced into the Moon, and then whatever stayed on Earth became Earth, essentially. We kind of talked about this on the live stream with Sintel. When Andromeda and the Milky Way collide, it's just going to mesh into one, ultimately.
Right, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that happens a lot. It happens with relationships, too. I'm just joking.
Giving you a bigger bubble, and we think that is the Big Bang. Most of these bubbles pop into existence and pop right back into the vacuum, never to be seen again. And so the vacuum, that is a state of nothingness, is teeming with bubble universes being created and destroyed. And that's why Stephen Hawking called it the space-time foam.
Oh.
Out of this space-time
I never heard that
foam,
before.
the chaos
Yeah,
of
me
all these
neither.
different timelines, one bubble just kept on going, and that is our universe, or in the Marvel language, the sacred timeline, the Newtonian world that we see around us.
All right, so surprisingly, Marvel's cinematic universe and contemporary physics theories seem to align here. But where do they deviate?
It deviates on the question of the TVA.
On behalf of the Time Variance Authority,
We don't know.
Well, I mean, his whole thing is like it deviates when you inject a god into the situation, into the equation, where someone is controlling all this deliberately. That's where scientists are like,
gotcha.
No.
All right, so Kang.
We don't have
Kang
any.
is the
We have no
deviation.
evidence of this. Yeah.
Just wait.
The TVA.
On behalf of the Time Variance Authority, I hereby arrest you for crimes against the sacred timeline.
The TVA are time cops. They are the time variance authorities. They pick out variants who will create their own timeline, which will gum up the works and create a collision between multiverses.
See, okay, so real quick, my very rundown, what do you call it, amateur understanding of this is that it is impossible to kill your own grandfather. If you were to go back in time, if you were to try to defeat the grandfather paradox, there's some kind of weird calculation in science I don't understand because I'm not a physicist, where if you went back in time, something would deviate you from your objective somehow. Like it would be impossible to go and kill your grandfather.
You know what? I feel like if they had taught this stuff to me in high school, I would have been way more interested in physics instead of like kinetic energy and
Right.
potential energy. I'm like, blah.
Yeah.
If you talk to me about time travel and whether or not I can go back in time and kill my grandfather, I'll be like, I'm listening and I'm going to get an A in this class.
I suspect he might be going in this direction with the conversation, but that's essentially like what the TVA is so to speak. It's like they're preventing you from being able to do things like that.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
But like there is a scientific explanation for a TVA of sorts. It's just not like that. They're not time cops. It's just like the universe is protecting itself from imploding. That's
Sure.
the idea.
Yeah.
Well, to the best of our knowledge, there is no TVA.
We are from the future, right? What is the TVA? I mean, it's from the future. It sounds from the future. It's pretty future-y.
Right, so what about time travel then? There's a lot of time travel happening in Loki and in the Marvel movies. Is it even possible?
I have no idea, man. We're talking about time travel here. Either it's all a joke or none of it is.
According to Einstein's general theory of relativity, time travel is possible.
We're good.
And in fact, now we have scores of solutions of Einstein's equations which allow for time travel. So this is an active area of theoretical research. The quantum theory resolves the whole paradox question of what happens if you alter the past to make the future impossible. The answer is, you simply altered somebody else's universe. If you go backwards in time to save Abraham Lincoln from being assassinated at the Ford Theater, you saved somebody else's Abraham Lincoln who looks just like your Abraham Lincoln, but your Lincoln died. Your timeline is not altered. You've altered somebody else's timeline because the river of time has forked into two rivers.
So,
Right,
Marvel is
okay.
taking some liberties with the physics of time travel. Let's take a step back and see how the multiverse idea was first introduced early on in the MCU.
So I guess that's why. Like, if you were to go back and try to kill your grandfather, you just create another timeline.
Well, I guess it's in a way, it's kind of like that Newtonian thing of like time is flowing in one direction, or even Einstein, where like time is flowing in one direction. So you can't stop the flow of time. Like, you can't change it.
Yeah.
All you're doing is causing a fork in the river
A new ripple.
and causing like a divergence,
Yeah.
basically.
Early on in the MCU.
Everything is connected. All 9 realms. All 9 realms are passing through each other, and gravity, light, and even matter is crashing from one world to the other.
When you first see this scene out of the Thor movies, you say to yourself, oh, come on, give me a break. This is just gobbledygook from some Hollywood scriptwriter's imagination. But actually, there's some physical basis to reality in what he said. In Thor comics, we have the 9 realms. 9 universes. In physics, we have 9 spatial dimensions and 1 time dimension.
Oh.
And so having 9 realms in Thor would correspond to the 9 dimensions of space in string theory. According to Marvel Comics, one dimension has the Earth on it, and another dimension has Asgard, and what connects the two is the Bifrost Bridge. It's a tunnel connecting parallel universes. It is the Einstein-Rosen Bridge. In 1935, Albert Einstein wrote a paper with his student, Nathan Rosen, connecting 2 black holes together. A black hole is like a funnel. You take one funnel, take the other funnel upside down, join them together, and then you have a bridge connecting 2 parallel universes.
Any questions?
Yeah.
You know what?
Okay, what?
No, because we're going through Thor: Dark World
Yeah,
right now,
yeah.
right? And we're just kind of making our way through the movie. What was interesting to me, and what's kind of coming through in this, I feel like ancient peoples had a certain type of intelligence, and same in the movie, right? Where in that scene where Jane is being treated by the people, by the ladies in Asgard, they're saying, oh, it's this thing. I forget what they called it exactly, and then she says, oh no, but it's actually this. And it's just like, it's language, and it's the same here. It's semantics. It's like, it's the 9 realms, and it's 9 whatever things,
Spatial, yeah,
spatial string theory, whatever.
Right.
It's just so cool to me that, you know, stuff that is kind of mythology can also have a basis in science.
9 spatial dimensions.
There we go. What's blowing your mind, Jaby?
Everything. I didn't know about the 9 spatial dimensions thing. I never heard that before. I didn't hear about the space bubbles, or whatever he was talking about before.
I knew foam.
The foam. Thank you.
Yeah.
What is that called again? I forgot what it was called. Like, I've heard of quantum foam, but I've never heard of the foam that he was talking about in this video.
I can't remember.
Like space foam or whatever
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
With regards to the greater universes.
I feel like if we had a pop quiz at the end of this video, we would fail because we can't remember any of the names.
What I thought you were driving at was the inherent knowledge in all of us, because
Exactly. Yeah.
I remember a long time ago, I was inside of a parking garage with a friend of mine who was a very, very strongly devout science person,
Right.
science fan. Not that he was a scientist himself, but he just loved science so much. And he was pointing at, I think because he came from Christianity or Catholicism. And a lot of people who come from Catholicism or Christianity, when they leave, they go hardcore science like you wouldn't believe.
Right, yeah.
And he was pointing out a spider to me making its web, and he goes, no one taught that spider how to make that web. That's all instinct. It just knows innately from generations how to do that. And I'm like, well, like it blew my mind for a second. I'm like, so what you were saying, I thought maybe we innately know where we come from on some level, and that's where all the fables kind of come from, is some basis of actual science.
Well, yeah, I think so. I have a fascination with like mythology and world mythology and stuff like that. But when you start reading a lot of it, it's really interesting how in different cultures, a lot of it is very similar.
Right.
And so there must be something with people where we're just trying to understand. And as we go on, as we gain more intelligence and like do more experiments and learn more, then we're able to put into words and explain more succinctly and it just explained better what we're seeing. So whether it's 9 realms or 9 dimensions of string theory, it's all kind of there.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm making sense at all.
No, I get what you're saying. I think we're saying the same thing. The Einstein-Rosen bridge, I probably have heard about, but don't remember at all. I thought he was just basically explaining a wormhole, but I think a wormhole is a different thing. He's talking about 2 black holes being bridged.
Yeah.
Whereas a wormhole is like taking you from one point in space to another point in space entirely.
It's like a expressway.
Yeah, and the thing about wormholes is they're very unstable, and they're usually too small or something like that. Like, there's all kinds of issues with wormholes.
There's always problems in sci-fi movies when you want to travel through a wormhole.
I'm a little bit confused about wormholes in general. They haven't talked about it yet here, but I'm a little bit confused about wormholes in general because when they showed it in Interstellar, which according to Kip Thorne follows the science, it was ginormous. It was a huge wormhole that the ship could just kind of go into. But generally speaking, I thought wormholes are really small. And that's what creates the problem. It's like, it's hard to use those because they're too small or something like that, or they're not stable.
Not if you're Ant-Man.
Not if you're,
Any questions?
Yeah. Can I have my shoe back?
In Spider-Man Far From Home, Mysterio lies about being from another universe.
There are multiple realities, Peter. This is Earth, Dimension 616.
You're saying there's a multiverse?
But Peter's mind is blown.
If you read Spider-Man comics, you know that Peter Parker is a nerd. His true love is science. And he uses science to defeat his enemies.
It completely changes how we understand the initial singularity. We're talking about an eternal inflation system, and how does that even work with all the quantum? It's insane.
Eternal inflation? That's an actual theory in cosmology.
The theory basically says that big bangs happen all the time. Even as we are speaking, multiverses are being created. That's called internal inflation. Inflation is basically the creation of a baby universe. But these baby universes are being created all the time in this bubble bath of universes. Each universe is perhaps with the laws of physics slightly altered, with the flow of time slightly different. You can go to any physics conference where we have Nobel laureates, directors of major laboratories talking about cosmology, and they'll say that yes, eternal inflation, this multiverse idea, is the dominant theory in cosmology today.
This universe is only one of an infinite number.
You can't talk about the Marvel multiverse without mentioning the Sorcerer Supreme.
And here we have Dr. Strange hurled through the looking glass, hurled through the Einstein-Rosen bridge to another reality.
Could different universes actually look like this? Would the laws of physics be so different?
The debate among physicists today is, can the laws of physics actually change in another baby universe? Stephen Hawking thought so, which means that our familiar universe, our benevolent universe that we know and love, may have different laws if you go through a wormhole to a different universe. Dark universes, universes of chaos, of universes where there's only darkness, no stars, only blackness. Stars do not ignite in these other universes. Life as we know it cannot exist. Only the chaos of randomness exists in these other universes. Is that possible? And the answer is yes.
That's a scary thought. But with new Loki episodes,
Why is that
plus
scary?
the Doctor Strange sequel coming soon, viewers will have the multiverse on their mind for the foreseeable future.
Young people know it.
I don't know why it's scary. It might be
like,
scary because, like, should we travel there? Is there a way out?
I'm not even thinking about that right now. I'm just like, okay, cool. I think it's cool that it exists. I'm just like, why are you scared?
I'm a little bit perplexed as to, I mean, obviously the laws of physics are different in those universes. I guess what's baffling me is I'm limited by my understanding of our own universe and the laws of physics in our own universe. I don't even have a grasp on that, to be perfectly honest. What I'm saying is, like, how is it possible you can have rocks colliding with rocks in complete and total darkness without the existence of stars, when star stuff is the primordial soup, as it were, for everything in the universe, right? Or at least that's my understanding of it. Like, everything comes from star stuff on some level. Star stuff combined with comets. You know, my understanding of anything with regards to evolution is very, very limited. It's very pedestrian. We come from star stuff, and we're the combination of star stuff and comets. I thought everything was in the universe, basically. I don't understand how you can have these rock formations without star stuff. Like, you know, it's like you start out with the gases and whatnot that eventually become a star, and the star explodes after enough time, and then...
Yeah, but, you know, if there are enough multiverses, enough baby universes hanging about, then maybe it makes sense that there might be one that is just dark. The void, as it were.
Well, the scary part is that you end up there and then you get caught between two rocks that collide.
You're like, come out.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I guess that's why it's scary.
Young people know it's science fiction for the most part, perhaps based on ideas from physics, and as a consequence, they may decide to make a career out of it and become a physicist. That's how I got started. So it helps to have young people being thrilled by some of the ideas coming from science, because they know in the back of the mind, yes, it is science fiction after all, but maybe, just maybe, there's a reality that they can partake of.
Yes!
That's exactly what has me so stoked about Loki and Avengers Endgame and all that stuff, like all the time travel stuff and anything related to science and whatnot. That's what gets me excited, is that this is being explored in pop films, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was saying earlier, is like, if my science teacher had kind of been like, okay, like totally off curriculum or something, why don't we explore how this might be possible or all this other stuff, you know? I guess at the time I was just learning like a very basic physics, and it wasn't like I did physical science, so it was physics and chemistry, and I was just like, God, physics is dull, oh my God.
Right.
And I kind of wish that I had, you know, had more interest in this stuff, and I think it's great because there is a lack of scientists and mathematicians and you know, people that we actually really need in order to advance our society, and it's because a lot of kids are just not interested in it anymore. It's not cool,
right?
You know, and so I think it's great if there's sci-fi movies and shows and stuff, and just kind of igniting that interest.
When you have stuff like Iron Man and you have stuff like Loki, Iron Man specifically I called out because of like engineering and whatnot.
Right, yeah.
But if you have stuff like Loki that is exploring these complex ideas from science, I feel like you are going to have kids who are just genuinely curious about it now, that want to find something related to that, and hopefully parents are open-minded about it and help put them on that path.
But like, don't force them if they're not into it. I'm looking at you, Asian parents.
No, but like, I thought this was a really cool, this was thorough. Like, he did a really good job.
This
I thought
was really fun.
For a minute, I thought this was going to be hammy and stupid, but I think he actually did a pretty good job of connecting the scientific ideas, some of which I never even heard of, because I've watched a lot of science videos, and after a while, it's like, yeah, I've heard this, but like, he introduced some concepts in here and some terminology that I've never heard before.
Yeah, no, this is great.
It was nice. You guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. If you haven't already, please subscribe, hit that bell icon, all notifications, and vote this video up. Also, you can subscribe to Wired if you just scroll down to the link in the description below, click that, and give the original video an upvote. I'm Jaby Koay. This is
ACHARA KIRK.
Peace out.